She's elegant, wealthy, and carries herself with quiet grace. Her poise screams luxury. But behind that polished image lies a dark secret. She's been sleeping with the young male servants. This time, though, she picked the wrong one, and she won't get away with it. Stay tuned. Like, share, and subscribe for the full story. Henry was a simple man. He had just finished washing the car, his shirt soaked and his hands cold. As he was about to return to the boys' quarters, Miss Sandra called out from the main house. "Henry," she shouted from the balcony. "Please come quickly." Henry wiped his wet hands on his trousers and ran up. "Yes, Ma," he answered, standing at the door. Sandra wore a silky red gown. Her hair was loose, and her lipstick was freshly done. She smiled sweetly and opened the door wider. "I need your help," she said softly. He turned. "Yes, Ma?" She was wearing a silky robe that hugged her body too tightly for comfort. Her makeup was fresh, and her perfume floated through the air like an expensive lie. "I need help carrying something from my room," she said, smiling. Henry hesitated for a second, then nodded. "Okay, Ma." As they entered her room, the atmosphere changed. It was too quiet, too private. Henry felt uneasy, but he didn't want to disobey his Mississippi. She closed the door gently behind them. As he stepped in, he noticed something strange. The house was quiet. Too quiet. "Where is Mama EKA and the cleaner?" he asked gently. "Oh, I told them to go home early because of the rain," she said, waving her hand. "Don't worry. Let's just fix the box." "The box is over there," she pointed, her voice calm. Henry walked to the corner, but before he could lift the box, he felt hands on his back. He turned quickly. "Miss." Sandra moved closer, too close. "Don't be afraid, Henry. I know you've been looking at me," she whispered, running her fingers along his arm. Henry stepped back instantly, panic in his eyes. "No, miss, please. I wasn't looking at you like that. I'm just your driver." Sandra's face changed. Her smile disappeared. Her eyes narrowed. "So, you think I'm not good enough for you?" she snapped. "No, I never said that. I respect you. Please let me go." She stared at him for a few seconds, then laughed, a wicked low laugh. Suddenly, she began to scream. Loudly. "Help! Help! Somebody help me!" Henry froze. "Miss, please. What are you doing?" Within minutes, 2 security guards rushed in, shocked to see Sandra on the floor, her robe slightly open and her hair messy. She was crying or pretending to. "He tried to rape me," she shouted, pointing at Henry. "He came into my room and locked the door. He tried to force himself on me." Henry's jaw dropped. "That's a lie. She's the one who—" "Shut up," one of the guards barked. They grabbed Henry roughly as he struggled to explain. "I didn't do anything. I swear on my life. Please. She's framing me." Sandra turned her face away, weeping fake tears and saying words that pierced Henry's soul. "I trusted him. I treated him like family. And this is how he repays me," she whispered, loud enough for the others to hear. When the police arrived minutes later, they didn't even ask questions. They looked at Sandra in her expensive gown, her tears, her trembling hands, and they looked at Henry, the poor driver in faded clothes. To them, the case was clear. They handcuffed him right there. "What did I do?" he cried. "Why are you doing this to me, miss? Why?" Sandra stood in the doorway, her arms folded, her lips curled in a victorious smile. But she quickly wiped it off when the officers turned to her. "Don't worry, Mississippi. He'll face the full wrath of the law," one officer said. "Thank you," she replied, her voice shaking slightly. "Please make sure he pays for this." Henry looked at her with tearful eyes as they dragged him away. "I begged you. I respected you. Why are you destroying me?" he whispered, but she didn't even blink. As the police van drove off, Sandra slowly turned around, walked back to her room, and locked the door. And then she laughed. A deep, wicked, satisfied laugh. She poured herself a glass of wine, walked to the mirror, and stared at her reflection. "That's what happens to people who say no to me," she whispered, raising her glass in mock celebration. At the police station, Henry was thrown into a cold, dark cell with no explanation, no lawyer, no rights. Just pain and confusion. Days passed, then weeks. Each morning, he sat on the hard floor, staring at the bars. Sometimes he prayed. Other times, he just cried. No one came to visit him. No one believed him. His world had collapsed. "I didn't touch her," he whispered to the wall. "I swear I didn't." But the walls gave no answer. One night, he had a dream. His late mother appeared in white. "My son, hold on. The truth will come. Do not lose your faith. He woke up with tears in his eyes and renewed strength in his heart. It had been 6 weeks since Henry was locked up like a criminal. 6 long weeks of silence, pain, and prayers. His face had grown lean. His eyes had lost their spark. But inside him, a quiet fire still burned. He refused to let lies bury his soul. At the station, most of the officers ignored him. Some mocked him. Henry never replied. He just sat in the corner of the cell, whispering prayers with a heart full of wounds. But one officer, a young constable named Michael, began to wonder. Something about the case felt wrong. One night, he approached Henry quietly. "Henry," he called. Henry looked up, surprised. No one had said his name in days. "Yes. Tell me your side. I want to hear it. I promise I won't judge." Henry's voice was low, filled with pain. But he told the story. From the moment Sandra called him to her room, to the moment he was dragged away like an animal. Michael listened closely, watching his face. "No lies?" he asked. "I swear before God," Henry said, his eyes wet. "She tried to touch me. I refused. Then she screamed." Michael nodded slowly. He stood up. "I'll see what I can find." That night, Michael stayed back after others had gone home. He sneaked into the evidence room and found the case file. No medical report. No witness statements. No CCTV footage. Just Madame Sandra's handwritten statement and her tears. Michael frowned. "This case stinks," he muttered. One quiet afternoon, Anita, the cleaner, was mopping the marble floor of the living room. The air was still, and the only sound was the soft swish of her mop. She glanced up and paused. Miss Sandra was lounging on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling through something with a sly smile playing on her lips. Her eyes gleamed with a strange satisfaction. Anita's heart sank. She shook her head slightly, barely audible words slipping from her mouth. "When will you ever get tired of accusing innocent men?" The thought had escaped before she could stop it. Her grip on the mop tightened. A storm of memories and questions rushed through her mind. Faces of men she once worked with, each one broken and dismissed, their names dragged through the mud. But Anita quickly blinked it all away. She lowered her gaze, swallowed her emotions, and kept mopping, like nothing happened. But something inside her had changed. That smile on Sandra's face, it was the final crack in a wall Anita had tried so hard to ignore. And deep down, she knew. One day, the truth would no longer stay hidden. Michael went to Henry's neighborhood. He spoke to his old neighbors, his church members, and even the mechanic across the street. Everyone said the same thing. "Henry? That man can't do such," one neighbor said. "He is a good man. I see him sometimes playing with the children. He is selfless. He's the kindest person we know," another said. Michael's heart ached. The man in jail wasn't just innocent, he was a good man. He went to the mansion, pretending to deliver a message. Sandra smiled politely when she saw him. "Officer, good evening." "Good evening, madam," he said. "Just doing a follow-up. I wanted to ask a few more questions." Sandra's eyes shifted. "But I already gave my statement." "Yes," he said, smiling. "Just standard procedure. Do you mind showing me the room where it happened?" She hesitated. "I've cleaned it. It's been over a month." "No problem. Just show me." Reluctantly, she led him upstairs. As Sandra opened the door, Michael scanned the room quietly. Something felt off, too clean, too staged. Almost like someone had wiped the memory of what truly happened. He noticed a small CCTV camera tucked high in the hallway just outside the room. He pointed at it. "Does that camera work?" Sandra blinked. I think it's been faulty. Mind if I check with your security team?" She hesitated. "Well, I'm not sure they keep records that long." Michael smiled again, polite but firm. "We'll see." Just as Michael was walking out of the house, he suddenly bumped into Anita. She leaned in quickly and whispered in a low, trembling voice, "They're all lies." Michael froze, confused. He turned to look at her. Their eyes locked. For a moment, everything else disappeared. In that silent stare, something passed between them. Michael's heart began to beat faster. Anita looked terrified but determined. Without another word, she walked away. Later that night, when everyone was asleep, Michael returned to the mansion in secret. The air was heavy. He stayed hidden in the shadows, waiting. Anita was already near the gate. She stepped out, eyes scanning the darkness, and then spotted him. She walked up to him quickly. "I can't take it anymore," she whispered. "I need to tell someone. Everything." Michael turned on his phone and began to record as Anita confessed in a low but clear voice. This isn't the first time. Miss Sandra has done it before. She forced herself on the gardener, the cook, the driver, and now Henry. Anita paused, breathing heavily. I've worked here for over 3 years. I've seen things that broke me, but my heart went out to Henry. I don't know why. Maybe because he's a good man. Kind. Gentle. And now he's suffering for something he didn't do. Michael clenched his jaw. Once you reject her, she turns everything around. She does it so clean that even her husband believes her lies. That's Miss Sandra for you. But I couldn't stay quiet anymore. She handed Michael her phone. I also recorded a video months ago. Look, here, she's touching the gardener. And this one, the second driver. He refused her. She got him thrown out. No one believed him. The next morning, the police returned to the mansion, but this time with a larger team. They demanded the CCTV footage. As they dug deeper, more shocking evidence was found. Hidden footage from hallway cameras Sandra had secretly disabled, except she forgot one. The footage showed men running out of her bedroom and bathroom, looking scared, panicked. In one clip, Sandra stood at the door in nothing but a robe, smirking. And every single one of those men, she had accused and arrested in the past. The evidence was too strong to ignore. Sandra knew that this was the end for her. She saw some of the video evidences. Her face changed. Her confidence cracked. She was handcuffed without a word. The truth had finally caught up with her. At the police station, Michael rushed in, holding the evidence in his hand. I have new proof, he shouted. Henry is innocent. Within the hour, Henry was brought out. He sat quietly, head bowed, hands on his knees. Then the door creaked open. Anita stepped forward, eyes full of tears, but her smile was warm. Henry, Anita called, smiling. You're free. Henry looked up slowly, unsure. What? You did all these for me? Henry asked. Yes, I had to. Henry, you are a good man. You don't deserve to be treated badly. Henry's mouth trembled. He stood up, and Anita rushed forward. They hugged tightly, right there in front of everyone. No words were needed. The silence said it all. As they stepped out of the station together, hand in hand, they saw her. Miss Sandra, in handcuffs, tears running down her cheeks. She looked up and saw Anita. You told them everything? She asked, her voice breaking. Anita didn't flinch. Yes, Ma. I did. Henry stood tall beside her. I had to, Anita continued. Henry is a good man. And the way you've treated all the male workers, accusing them, ruining them, it's not right. Sandra's lips trembled. Her body shook with silent shame. She bowed her head slowly. She had no more lies left to tell.